Hello, my friends. Hello. Shout out to Neil Diamond, the jazz singer. If you're somebody like me who has recently turned 50, that was something, and somebody that was in your life at one point in time when you were a youngin'. Cheers. Tonight we're drinking Angel's Envy Triple Oak. Pretty good stuff. Pretty smooth. Anyhow, so yeah, things look a little bit different. I'm just in a different chair, same room, same setup. I did get a pretty cool birthday gift though. I got my little Rodecaster Duo here. Thank you very much. Enough's enough. Do you like the different little things we got here? The little features that we got here. I could tell a really terrible joke. No, you get the point. We're not going to get too deep into that one tonight. I think when you see me sitting here, though, I would expect maybe a little bit more seriousness. So we've had 3 shows so far, I think. No, we've had 3 shows. And really lots of introductory stuff, some things to introduce me to you, some things for me to get a better feel for how things look, how things sound, how to use the software to record, upload different things, but never going to pivot. Expect seriousness from this chair. This is going to give me an opportunity to look at things that maybe I have pulled up on the screen. I don't have anything on the screen tonight, but just to kind of go through some subject matter, some things more squared away, put together. So I plan on talking about all kinds of different things. I think that I've alluded to that. I think I help point you in the direction of some of the different subject matter that I'm about by looking at the books on my bookshelf. I am still currently trying to read my fiction and get caught up with the assignments that I missed over the years in my schooling. At any rate, that's one of those phrases I need to get out of my psyche. At any rate, it's a good transition thing in some kind of a thing, but when you're putting together a show to put on here, it's one of those things that just, anyway, it drives you nuts. Anyway, listen, talking to a camera in your son's former bedroom is a lot more difficult than you might think. So what do I want to talk about? Well, listen, I exist, you exist. Whether you think about it or not, you think about your existence. So when people talk about the idea of existentialism, it doesn't sound like the right word. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's my show. I could say words wrong. It's up to you to figure out what it is that I'm trying to say. But at any rate, existentialism. I don't know why it's so difficult. It's the 50-year-old. I think I need Prevagen. We talk about that sometimes at this thing I'm involved with. Anyway, if we're not so serious from this chair, who knows? So there was this preacher that I used to listen to. I really liked a lot of the different things that he talked. I do not believe, I am not in any way aligned with this particular guy anymore, but there were definitely a lot of different things that I listened to from this gentleman that to this day really sticks with me. One of the things that he was talking about in a series that he did really had a lot to do with the idea of existentialism. Existentialism. Why doesn't that not sound right? My goodness. Yeah, existentialism. Man. Roads. Anyhow, existentialism. So if you think at all about the idea that you are here, that you exist, that you're in this world, you definitely give some thought to the idea of your existence and the existence of other people and the existence just of this reality just in general. Throughout the sermon series that this gentleman that I found talking about this, he said there's really like 4 key fundamental questions that people ask. Who am I? Why am I here? What is wrong in the world? And how can what's wrong in the world be made right? And I think that I don't care who you are. I don't care about your background. I do care who you are. I do care about your background. As it pertains to what I'm talking about right now, I don't care who you are or what your background is. You think about these things. You think about these questions. You think about this kind of a thing. I think what we get stuck on a lot, though, is question number 3. What's wrong with the world? And rightfully so. We're constantly bombarded, all of the different videos that we see, the reels that we get to enjoy on the different social medias and whatnot, your news that you get, whatever news avenues you're plugged into. I highly suggest that you get off the mainstream media news, though. They're all controlled by whoever is the person that's paying the bills. Lots of PFIZ something or other. I'm sure you can put your two and two together and see what I'm talking about. But there's lots of different companies out there that pay for the advertising. And as a result, we have local newspapers that are owned by a certain person that owns a certain Major League Baseball team that is not very far from here. And I really don't ever find anything negative about that team, because why would you? Why would you bite the hand that feeds you? So the same type of a thing as it pertains to news organizations, media conglomerates, and that sort of thing. The people that are paying your bills are generally not somebody that you're going to put on the 6 o'clock evening news and show people how they're frying people's brains, not to sound melodramatic. But at any rate, what's wrong with the world? We see that on a regular basis. We had a major event take place this week. No matter how you feel one way or the other about Charlie Kirk was shot and killed this week. I'm not going to go into one way or the other how I feel about Charlie Kirk. I do think that it is completely wrong for somebody to murder somebody, no matter who that person is, at the hands of whomever, a marksman, a police officer, an army person, so on and so forth. We have lots of unjustified deaths that take place on a regular basis. And that really fits in nice with the whole what's wrong with the world question that we have here at number 3. How you would to answer questions 1 and questions 2 really help you have a better perspective on how you would answer question 3. So who am I and why am I here has great bearing on what I perceive as being what's wrong with the world. And from my worldview, so I call myself a follower of Christ. I believe the Bible to be a true and accurate book. I believe that as a result of that's going to have a complete different bearing on what I think is wrong with the world versus somebody who thinks of themselves in a completely superficial kind of a manner. We grow up in this country especially, and I'm sure it's the same other places, but I know especially, listen, I didn't grow up anywhere else. This is where I'm from. This is where I've lived my whole life. I have visited other places, but I know that as it pertains to how it goes as somebody being raised in America, one of the first things that you learn about who you are has a lot more to do with what you do than like what you believe. And one of the things that I think comes up with that a lot, we're taught this weird point of view of if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, you got to leave out religion and politics. And I don't know if I find any more subjects more relevant than religion and politics. And please hear me out. Listen to what I'm actually saying here before you just click off because I mentioned something about religion and politics. First of all, I will say that the idea of Christianity is very skewed from a lot of different places. I find that a lot of different church organizations run their operation a lot like how any other business endeavor in this capitalist system would work. To all my capitalist friends, I promise you I am not a communist. I promise I am not a Marxist or somebody who believes in socialism. I think that capitalism in its rawest form is the best system, although I think all of those systems are broke because I really have a hard time with the systems that we seem to bow down to regardless. But in America, you find that a lot of church organizations really, the bottom line, making sure that the lights stay on, making sure that the pastor is paid, making sure that the bills are unfortunately one of the main biggest things that so much time, effort, and energy gets spent on by a lot of different people within the leadership of churches. And I promise I'm not trying to like step on toes of people that I know that are involved in leadership of churches, but it's the truth. It is what it is. A lot of the different things that we're taught and told by the Bible don't even really get. If you were to argue that somebody was not preaching the gospel, you would have this really tremendous uphill battle to try to prove your point that this person indeed is not preaching the gospel. But if you had some kind of a secondary issue, or you maybe painted the person out to be something of like a tyrant, or a I don't know, a megalomaniac, or that sort of thing, then you could get that person out a lot quicker and a lot easier than you could trying to prove that that person isn't preaching the gospel. Because at the end of the day, preaching the gospel is kind of secondary. Getting people in the door and making sure that money is flowing through the organization seems to be first and foremost. Even a lot of the outreach type things seem to be like virtue signaling. Just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. I know a lot of my church-going friends may disagree with me, but I think that if you were honest and took an honest look at things that you're involved with and things that fly the moniker of being Christian, they fall really, really short of what they ought to be. At any rate, so what's wrong with the world? Lots, but not really. What's wrong with the world is real simple. It's sin. And sin comes in a lot of different forms. Sin has been here since the beginning. And so long as Christ has not returned, sin is going to be in the world. Sorry to all of my post-mill friends out there who think otherwise. You're not going to clean this world up and make it beautiful and wonderful for Christ, because the only way for you to do that is to do some things that are very contrary to what you claim you believe in the idea of Christianity. And I think that that's where a lot of things kind of go south for different people, on why you have people right now celebrating the events of this past week. Born and raised in Steubenville, Ohio. Dad was a steel worker. Mom worked at the hospital. I think that was the reality for a lot of different people that grew up in Steubenville. Went to a lot of different birthday parties, graduation parties, weddings, et cetera, all those various same people that would be at that we would have went to for them and their kids. They came for my parents' kids, that sort of thing. We grew up with this identity of the local culture that we were a part of. As time went on, and I will say that throughout the 80s, what really went on in the 80s was a marrying of that identity with this broader, larger idea of being an American. So something that I talk about this with a lot of different people. I talk about it at great length. I feel like what took place in my time growing up, and I think this probably went on with a lot of different places, a lot of different people coming up at the exact same time. You were taught that when you get done with high school, you need to go make something of yourself, and it's not going to exist here. In other words, like when you graduate from Steubenville High School, Wintersville High School, Catholic Central, Mingo High School, whatever, all the local, Weir High, Toronto, back then they had Edison North, Edison South. Heck, I remember Jefferson Union, JU High School, go Yellow Jackets. The whole idea, the whole premise was that you can't stick around here. There's no opportunity for you here. You need to get up and leave. So I can't help but see that was a deliberate thing to make sure that a place like this that had strong family ties, strong family values, that you help eradicate that to some extent, as well as get people to let go of the idea of being that small community and reach more into this idea of being a much larger community. And so when your brothers and sisters are all throughout the country, when you have aunts and uncles that live in Savannah or Raleigh-Durham or Phoenix or who knows, Seattle, Bremerton, Washington, shout out to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. That was such a dirty place to work at. Anyway, I think that's what they call it anymore. It's Naval Station Bremerton now, I think is what was I saying? We were convinced back then that we needed to get up and leave and move to all of these different cities and towns, take our honors diploma and go to college and get some type of a job, some kind of a mid-level management job somewhere that you're going to be plugged in as a piece of the puzzle somewhere for some corporate entity that doesn't even know your name, doesn't really care if you exist or not. And on the other side of all that, the The upper Ohio Valley is a desolate, there ain't nothing here. Not because there shouldn't be or couldn't be, there could definitely be a lot of stuff here. There were so many smart people that I knew that graduated ahead of me, and I just wonder how much different the Ohio Valley would look if the likes of some of those people would have been here. So, man, I'm all over the place. Okay, what's wrong with the world? A lot. There's a lot wrong with the world. But back to what I was saying originally. First thing, main thing, sin. So in the beginning, I told you this stuff's going to get deep. I got to lay a base. I got to lay a foundation for all the rest of this to get built up on. I could choose to talk about Palantir and the CIA and how Facebook started the day after DARPA's, I don't even know what the thing was that DARPA had. DARPA actually had a thing that wanted to be able to track people and their life and their events and their people that they were around from birth to death and know all of the data points and all of the things behind that. I don't know what that was called. I could look it up for you, I'm sure. But that thing stopped on this particular day. And the very next particular day, we get Facebook. I wonder what Facebook is for. It's really so that we could share pictures of the good mashed potatoes that my wife made today, or talk about how somebody's going to go to hell because they supported Charlie Kirk. What the hell am I trying to say here? Well, sin has existed since the beginning of humanity. Adam and Eve, who literally took strolls with God, physically in the presence of God, they sinned. They ate what they weren't supposed to eat. They come to understand, they come to have the full knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong. We see this all day, every day. And we have a lot of different people that would like to point out the different things that are wrong. Based on what? Based off of question one. Who are you? I don't mean if you're a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, if you're an electrician, pipe fitter, laborer, or somebody that does rigging, truck driver, window tinner. Shout out to all my window tinners out there. Slang that film, yo. This is why I don't believe in the idea that you should not talk about religion and politics. We get this idea that when somebody's talking about politics, then you're automatically talking about, oh, this guy's my guy, or I lean right, I lean left. To me, that's not it. And so, like, the distraction of politics, first of all, is set up in such a fashion that you don't even really get true politics. Because true politics would be, how do you feel about illegal immigration? Do you think a sovereign nation has the right to have requirements on people to come into their country and live and work and participate in that country? Politics would be, do you believe that citizens have the right to own and bear firearms? Politics would be, do you think that it's right or okay for a woman to choose to kill an unborn baby that she has in her womb? Politics would be, do you think that an individual has the right to refuse a jibbity jab that hasn't been tested, that has been rushed through and told everybody that it's completely whatever? You can do the thing. You can do all the hard work on that. That's politics. Why aren't we supposed to talk about that? Like, I understand that I'm going to have a completely different point of view about that than you're going to have about that. And that has everything to do with what my worldview is. If I believe in Christ and I think that I belong to Christ, and you don't believe in Christ and don't think that you belong to Christ, then we're going to have a completely different worldview. And that's going to affect some of those different things as it pertains to politics. But I think where we have a real problem with this is if you don't talk about those things, what are you left to talk about? How smoking hot that girl is? Did you see the latest juicy gossip? Like, all we're left to talk about is sin. I mean, filler and sin, and nothing of any kind of poignant substance, no kind of like weightiness, no type of like real stuff. I don't know why that is. Who I am is completely based off of those things. And I think that it gets turned around a lot of different times to where a lot of people, because we're not able to talk about those things, because we're not able to talk about politics and religion, then people don't even know what they believe. And so if you try to get somebody to articulate something, what you end up doing is you have people then having to refer back to the handbook. They say, okay, wait a second. I am a conservative, Christian, married. Man, why did that do that? I wish I knew that function existed. Anyway, thanks, camera. So anyway, the handbook. I'm a married, conservative, Christian, heterosexual, white, blue-collared, etc., etc. So when you ask me something about immigration, I got to refer to the handbook. Let's see. Page 472 of handbook that goes along with all of those monikers that I said describe me says, as it pertains to immigration, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't make any sense. To be quite honest, so I'll share this part. I break from the norm when it comes to immigration for a whole bunch of different reasons. First of all, the amount of people that apply to get into this country legally through the regular channels of immigration has gone steadily up every year my entire life. The amount of people that they actually let in every year has changed almost zero in forever. They're not. That's a group of people that may or may not end up being somebody that can help a politician win some type of a race. So who's really trying to go to bat for that group of people? So those things never change. If you happen to be able to throw a really nice fastball and a really nice curveball, you get to go to the front of the line. If you're able to write some type of really good computer program, you get to go to the front of the line. If you happen to be from a country that didn't exist 70, 80, 90 years ago, then because the quotas have not been fulfilled yet, you get to go to the front of the line. If you happen to be somebody from a place like Scotland or Ireland or Germany or one of these other countries that have existed for forever and have had a whole bunch of people come to this nation, sorry, you're denied. The quota has been filled for those people. But yet all of the new Eastern Bloc countries that have only existed since the fall of the Soviet Union, oh yeah, we don't have that many people here that are of that descent. So sure, come on in. Just like so many different other systems, that system is broken too. But you only get to hear about it at election time because nobody cares about those people any other time than election time. And they don't even really care about those people. They care about the people that have a vested interest in that subject matter and are hoping to try to pull on the strings of those people to get them to say, you know, I'm your candidate at any rate. So worldview, who am I? Why am I here? If you cannot talk about politics and religion, then I would argue that there's a whole bunch of people out there that have no idea who they are or why they're here. All they're allowed to talk about is, did the Raiders beat the Chargers? Did you see how terrible Arch Manning did against UTEP? So even in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk situation from this week, and I'm trying to do my best to not be, one way or the other. There was a lot of really crazy stuff that came out of that guy's mouth. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's come out of my mouth. I'm sure there's a lot of crazy stuff that's come out of your mouth. Does that deserve death? I don't think so. If we could actually examine who we are, what we think, what we believe, if we're actually able to have those conversations, I think that people would have a completely different outlook on things like what's wrong with the world and how can what's wrong with the world be made right. I believe that I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to try my best to do my best and do my part and strive to do a little bit better than I did today. I hope that the Holy Spirit empowers me to be able to do that, because left to my own, I know what I do. I really want to share with folks that we all really need to start asking these questions. We really need to start having conversations with one another. That's a lot more than just filler stuff. We need to try to foster thought. We need to have some care for one another. We need to have a sense of community. And I mean, I'm talking about real community. We've lost that like entirely. Growing up, we had a community that was people from all different walks of life, all different political viewpoints, all different types of occupations and livelihoods, all being able to come together for the birthday party, for the graduation party, for the wedding, even a Friday night, just get together, even for a Tuesday morning, come over, have tea and smoke a cigarette. And now the only way that you seem to be able to have community is to be plugged into something that has these preconceived notions of all different types of stuff. Community exists within you being in the rifle club or going out on side-by-sides, having your kid involved in travel ball. And we don't even know our neighbors. We don't know the people that live 3 doors down. A lot of times we don't even know the people that live next door. I grew up at a time when I knew everybody on my block, both sides of the street. I knew all the people on the block next street up. I knew a lot of people on the block down from me. It took for me to go several blocks in one direction or another for me to get to a point where I didn't know anybody. Those days are gone. You know all the people in your church on a first name basis. Do they know anything? What do they really know about you? Do the people at work know anything about you? Do you know anything about them? I don't know. Just some food for thought. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. In fact, I'm hoping that we can move this in a direction that gets us to be having a lot bigger, more comprehensive conversation about everything. But I will tell you this. I know the answer to number 3. Honestly, I know all the answers. I have all the answers. Tune into my show. I have all the answers. I do not have all the answers. But I do know who I am. By answering number 3, what's wrong with the world, I think I have a better idea of why I'm here, as well as how can what's wrong with the world be made right. I believe that this world, the problems that exist here exist because sin exists here. I don't think that sin is something that can be ever stamped out or eradicated. Sorry, post mills. If you don't know what post mill is, look it up. I'm sure I'll talk about it at some point in time on here. But you really need to be somebody that is talking with the people that are around you, talking with the people that are within your sphere of influence. Get used to that phrase. I'm going to use it over and over and over again. Because at the end of the day, we need to not be about all these filler conversations and not letting people in on who we are, what we think, what we believe. If a lot more people were clear about the things that they believe and not scared of losing their livelihood or getting canceled on some type of something, then I think that we would find that a lot more people believe very similar to us and not these crazy super way off to the left, super way off to the right, fringe people that seem to be the ones that are in power, that control and direct a lot of the thought process that calls itself whatever you claim to believe. At any rate, I think I've been rambling long enough. Thanks for tuning in. Get used to this kind of a thing whenever I'm sitting in this chair. This is the serious discussion chair. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you check me out again next time. Till next time, peace.